Hello and welcome. I am Thomas Porteous and you are watching NewsX World. Let's look at the top story this hour, which is a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake off Russia's far eastern coast that has triggered tsunami warnings across the Pacific. The earthquake, which hit near Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula at about 11:25 a.m. local time on Wednesday, is believed to be one of the most powerful ever recorded. Around 2 million people were ordered to evacuate in Japan, Russia and Hawaii, but most warnings have since been downgraded. Alerts were also issued in China, the Philippines, Indonesia, New Zealand, and even as far as Peru and Mexico. This has been a huge event in the global natural calendar. And we're now joined by Joseph Gregory Mahoney, who's a professor of politics and international relations and director of the International Graduate Program in Politics in Eastern China, a normal university. He joins us live from Shanghai. Thank you very much for joining us. Professor Gregory, this has been a huge event. However, thankfully, no casualties and no injuries so far yet recorded. What have been the immediate impacts of this earthquake on the Pacific region, and what does it mean for the future of disaster preparedness?
Well, let me tell you, via social media and news reports last night, I was in Beijing until today. We received warnings of the impending typhoon, including maps indicating likely landfalls. And then a few minutes before noon today, we received the tsunami warning. I was supposed to fly down from Beijing to Shanghai at noon, but that flight was canceled last night. I managed to book another one for 3 p.m., which was then delayed to 4, landing at Shanghai's Hongqiao Airport at 6 p.m. This evening. The trip about 20 minutes longer than usual, given the large fishhook loop we flew around the storm to approach in the south. Now, we landed fast and in a puddle, but safely. That said, while at the airport in Beijing, I noticed most of the earlier flights to Shanghai were canceled, especially to Pudong Airport, which is right next to the ocean. And while I haven't seen final figures of cancellations and delays, I'm sure that they were substantial. And of course, train and ferry operations were also impacted. Now, in Shanghai, throughout the course of this event, yellow and orange alerts were issued. More than 280,000 people were evacuated to almost 2,000 temporary shelters that were erected around the city, where people received hot meals and care. And while I think we're all rather relieved that the city appears to have managed to dodge the tsunami, perhaps because it was so deep underground, we have had some moderate flooding in some of the coastal areas due to the storm surge, due to the typhoon. And we've seen some very high water today in Suzhou Creek, which courses through the city, and which I can see from my children's bedrooms. But that said, I think everyone here is remarking that we've experienced worse in the past year, most notably Babinka. And the weather presently, and I'm here in the middle of the city, we have just a slight drizzle and low to moderate winds. But, I think these are the wages of climate change, the dark and difficult wages, and they follow on the disastrous weather, extreme weather that we witnessed in Beijing over the last couple of days.
Thank you for your insight, Professor Mahoney. Please stay with us. We are also joined by Naresh Waidia, who's a seismologist. Thank you very much, Naresh, for joining us on the program. Naresh, this has been one of the largest and most powerful earthquakes ever recorded at 8.8 magnitude. What are going to be the immediate impacts of this earthquake? Also looking, it's been over 12 hours now since it originally happened. How have you analysed this whole situation in each region that it has affected? And should people still be worried given the reel back of the warnings from governments?
Yeah, it is a mega earthquake, 8.8 magnitude earthquake occurred in Kamchatka, and this is a shallow Fox earthquake. So, by 8.8 magnitude earthquake, say, tsunami was expected, and as the warning has been given by different countries across the Pacific coast, so that is there, and this tsunamis are going to be remain for few hours since now also, because it is a huge earthquake and it takes some times for the tsunamis to just go from the epicenter of the earthquake to few stations. So as we know that this is a 8.8 magnitude earthquake occurred at a 20-kilometer depth, which has displayed a plate boundary of nearly 700-kilometer length and about 200-kilometer breadth, and suddenly caused a vibration beneath the ocean, which displayed the ocean volume and caused the tsunami waves are there. So these are there and it will remain someday. But as it is occurred within the sea, so there is no direct casualties, but due to tsunamis, there can be some damage and casualties are there. But now we have the tsunami warning systems all over different countries, and this is just as the ring of Pacific where major earthquakes or great earthquakes occurred in the past. Also, we have seen. Yeah, just you can take the example of 2011 Japan earthquake that was a 9.1 magnitude earthquake is there. So these are the warnings which in the coastal region the care has to be taken so that there cannot be just as the casualties or whatever is there of these distractions, and maybe all these countries has warned the people so, to be safe and be in at the safer places due to these tsunami.
Yes, thank you very much for that insight. Please stay with us. We have some more information for our viewers. The Klyu-Chevs-Koy volcano in the remote Kamchatka region has started erupting following the earthquake earlier today. The volcano is located in the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia, Russia's far east region, off the coast of which the magnitude 8.8 earthquake took place earlier this morning. The volcano is one of the highest volcanoes in the world, rising to a height of 4,750 meters, or 15,600 feet. Since the year of 1700, the volcano has erupted more than 50 times. We are once again joined by Naresh Wadia. Naresh, how can an earthquake like this, such a powerful earthquake, trigger something, a volcano eruption even? My apologies, we seem to have lost. Apologies, we're facing technical issues. Hopefully Naresh can hear me in just a second.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Naresh? I'm just wondering what.
Can you hear?
Yes, I can. I can. What kind of activity can you explain how an earthquake of this magnitude can lead to the eruption of such a volcano?
Yeah, as I told that it has displayed a huge part of the tectonic plate, about 800-kilometer length and about 200 kilometer breadth and about few meters has displayed suddenly. So in the volcanic eruption regions, it can cause a sudden disturbance, and that can cause the volcanoes if there is a volcano active region near to that activity to the tectonic plate where this earthquake takes place. As it is a shallow box earthquake, about 20 kilometers beneath the ocean floor, so it has huge disturbance caused in that region due to this earthquake. So that is the mechanism where the displacement suddenly takes place, And if there is a volcanic region or whatever is the region, or there are the landslide regions, so these are the secondary effects which occur due to these displacement, sudden displacement of the due to these earthquake.
Yes, we are all, thank you very much, Naresh. We're also joined by Tomohiko Taniguchi, who's a former advisor to the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much once again for joining us, Tomohiko. In just the last couple of hours, we have seen Japan's meteorological agency downgrade this warning to an advisory. What factors led to this decision?
Obviously, there have been smaller effect felt across the nation in terms of tremor power over the last 24 hours. I think that's been one of the reasons. And there has been a danger, nonetheless, that in parts of Japan closer to the epicenter might face another wave of tsunami. But time has passed enough for the nation's agency to come to a conclusion that the worst is over. And while it is still the case that people should remain alarmed, they don't have to evacuate, they don't have to be prepared, really the worst case scenario. So that's basically what the situation is like. And also, when Japan was hit by an even greater one on the 11th of March 2011, that was magnitude 9.0. Compared to magnitude 8.8, the seismic power is about double, 2 times as strong as magnitude 8.8. So in that sense, the Japanese have been there and done that. I think that's fair to say so.
Yes, thank you very much for that insight. We now have some more information. Marine and air trafficking groups have recorded widespread disruption due to the earthquake in Russia and the following tsunami alerts. According to FlightAware, more than 470 flights were cancelled or delayed with significant disruption at several US and Japanese airports. Marine traffic data also showed 91 vessels, including fishing boats, yachts and Coast Guard ships, had evacuated Honolulu Harbor in Hawaii as a precautionary measure. Joseph Gregory Mahoney, I hope you are still with us. You did mention previously the logistical issues that have come of this earthquake during your time in China. Obviously, with over 470 flight cancellations reported, how do you assess the broader impact of natural disasters on global air travel and logistics? Obviously, we've just seen that images of that volcano, consequently, which has also erupted during this earthquake. What are your thoughts, Professor?
You know, I think that if you look at the on-time arrival and departures coming out of Hong Kong over the last couple of years, they've steadily gotten worse. I think this puts pressure on airlines to change some of their tactics. I think that in China, of course, we're very, very sensitive about not taking unnecessary risks, given the accountability and responsibility system that we have here. So these are some concerns. We are generally concerned that there is going to be more and more of this with increasing extreme weather associated with climate change. And certainly there will be some concerns, I think, in the Shanghai region tomorrow to do some assessments, maybe out on Chongming Island, to make sure that that important alluvial island, which plays a vital role in the ecology of East Asia, certainly protecting Shanghai as a barrier island, but as an important migratory bird reserve that's important for Japan and the Korean Peninsula, as well as farther north into Russia. I think we'll have to be assessing some of these tomorrow to see. But you know, there is a general concern that there are 3 regions in China that are especially vulnerable, among the top 5 most vulnerable in the world. the Shandong region, the Jiangsu, Shanghai region, and the Greater Bay Area, which includes Guangzhou, Shanghai, Macau, Shenzhen, these areas, and in terms of fixed capital investment and populations exposed, vulnerable to climate change. So there is a very clear understanding of these concerns. We did see today a major announcement by the government for extending ecological responsibility systems. Previously, they largely focused on official accountability at the top, but these have now been further developed with a more comprehensive institutional response at all levels of government. Those were just announced today. So I think we're all aware of the time in which we're living and the need to make adjustments. And I think that what we saw today in Shanghai, even though we saw a lot of people evacuated and perhaps unnecessarily, that officials are moving very quickly to try to make sure that people are protected and that we avoid more tragedy, like the 30 lives that were lost over the weekend in the Beijing area, or even the greater tragedy that we just saw in Texas with the 120 lives that were lost to the extreme weather there.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to thank all the guests that we've had on that segment, Tomohiko Taniguchi, also Naresh Wada, and of course, Joseph Gregory Mahoney. Thank you very much for joining us on that segment. And we here, of course, at NewsX World, we will continue to bring you all updates on that developing situation. However, we move over to South Asia next, where strong political reactions in India after US President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on Indian imports starting on August the 1st. The Congress party slammed the move, calling it a catastrophic failure of foreign policy, blaming Prime Minister Narendra Modi's close alignment with Trump, including the slogan, Ab Ki Bar Trump Sarkar. Trump says India's high tariff non-monetary trade barriers and continued energy and defense ties with Russia justify the decision. An additional penalty will also be imposed, though details remain unclear. The move puts India's $87 billion export market to the United States at risk, ending months of trade talks and raising questions over the future of bilateral ties. We're now joined by Peter Cardillo, who's a chief economist at Spartan, to discuss this in further detail. Peter joins us live from New York. Thank you very much for joining us, Peter, on the program. What are going to be the immediate implications of President Donald Trump's 25% tariff on Indian imports, particularly for India's export market to the US, which is valued at $87 billion?
Well, I think, it's a big blow to the Indian exports, and it means that if these tariffs do go into effect for a sustained period of time, that India is going to have to come to the bargaining table. And, I think it's somewhat politically motivated, but I think this is Trump's way of getting India in line with his wishes. And that close relationship that he had with the prime minister seems to have dissipated, at least for now. And so that means hard times. And it also means that Trump means business. In fact, not only did he impose 25% tariffs on imported goods, he also put a penalty, an extra levy, because of India's purchase of Russian oil. So I think this is, a tactic that it will eventually lead to some sort of more coordinated agreement. As I said, it'll probably go into effect. I mean, we have one more day before August the 1st. So I don't expect anything to happen, but perhaps maybe within the next 2 weeks, I would imagine that India will have to come and try and submit perhaps a deal that will be pleasing to the United States, or face the consequences of the Indian economy deteriorating, and that would not be good news, even for us, because India is a fairly large trading partner.
Yes, of course, Peter. What is going to be the direct consequences on the American consumer? What kind of goods are going to raise in price? How are the American people going to feel these measures?
Well, I would suspect that we're going to see higher inflation. Higher inflation means that the Fed is not likely to be as generous as perhaps the markets would want it to be. So it affects us because we have higher inflation on, obviously, if someone is buying an imported product from India. And I doubt very much that for a long period of time that it will be absorbed by companies. Up until now, there seems to have been some of the inflationary aspect being absorbed by corporate America. But I don't think corporate America is going to continue to do that. So it's a negative in terms of, it's a negative for the U.S. consumer in terms of higher prices, higher inflation.
Yes, and Peter, what about, obviously Donald Trump mentions the fact that India is Russia's largest buyer of energy. How is this going to affect India in the long run as well, especially if these additional tariffs come in once Donald Trump's deadline runs out for Vladimir Putin to make progress on this Ukraine war, and if he doesn't, then that's also going to affect India's economic position as well. How do you analyze the fact that India might be facing even higher tariffs than this?
Absolutely. As I said that at the beginning of the conversation, that there's an added levy on because of India's purchasing of Russian oil. I think that's another way of telling India it's time that you increase your purchases here from the United States. And I think that again, another tactic to bring India in line with the wishes of the United States.
Also, Peter, do you think India is in the position to retaliate here? Obviously, we saw the European Union and obviously China, who have more leverage than others, they were in the position to retaliate. Is India in that same position? Does it have that leverage?
No, I don't think it has the leverage that China has. In fact, it looks as though perhaps there'll be a 90-day extension if President Trump decides to extend the deadline for China. The ramifications are quite different. So I think India at this point is going to have to try and do whatever it can to make a better deal and get back on the good graces of the President of the United States.
How do you think this is going to affect relations, India-US relations in the long run? Obviously, this is a trade policy. Donald Trump calls them reciprocal. However, do you think this is going to affect the relationship, the bilateral relationship in the long run, or is it just a temporary measure?
I would hope, and I think that it's probably a temporary situation. Obviously, it's a steep tariff, and I don't think anyone in India is happy about this. And so I kind of think that it's just a temporary situation.
Peter Cardillo, thank you very much for joining us on the program, as always. Well, that's all that we have time for, and we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you for joining us.